Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and other assorted gender assignations. Welcome back to the Bored to Death Bingecast, where we take TV shows and movies and binge them in easily digestible chunks. I am Jay Winger, being joined by
Sam,
Zeke,
and we are back to continue our binge of Season 2 of My Hero Academia. We are in the middle of the Sports Festival story arc, which I know is Sam's favorite story arc.
that's one of them.
The earliest of your favorites.
It started to ramp up the show.
Yeah.
pretty good then.
Even if it does introduce a whole bunch more characters, but then that seems to be most animes. It's like just as you're starting to get used to your main cast of characters, here's a whole bunch.
I'd rather them spread out and have a whole bunch, like a collective group of characters, rather than here's my average 4 characters I'm gonna be bored with in a week.
Yeah, that's fair. So when we left off, they just finished the
horse game.
The horse game, right? The cavalry battle. That's what it was.
Yep.
I was trying to remember what it was called, and so basically, 4 teams move on to the next round, if I'm remembering correctly.
So.
Todoroki's team came in first because he's OP.
I think
AF. Bakugo got second. Shinso got 3. Came out of nowhere to get 3. The guy from Class 1C. Yeah, the guy who's on the image for episode 19, which we're going to be starting shortly. And Deku's team just barely managed to make 4th place thanks to Tokoyami, because he used his Dark Shadow to snag a bunch of
so cool.
snag a bunch of his headbands to give him the points. And I think, if I'm yes, and this upcoming episode should be basically Todoroki talking with Deku while All Might talks with Todoroki's dad, Endeavor.
Yep.
So number 1 hero and the number 2 hero.
It's funny. It parallels another scene that happened just recently in the most recent season.
Well, so the scene in the more recent season is a callback to the one we're about to.
I think so.
To see.
I'll have to see it and see how much it pairs up. Really.
Yeah. Anything you need to add here, Zeke?
I can't wait for the one-on-ones. They're so much fun.
Oh, the one-on-ones. That's going to be the next round, isn't it?
Yep.
Now that they've got it down to I think a team field of 16, it makes sense.
Yep.
Good old tournament arc.
See, the part is I feel like I can't wait for this tournament thing to be here and watch it, but at the same time I can't wait for after it, because that's when you get to meet one of my favorite villains, and just for premises alone, because you heard me with Gundam and stuff like that, how I like certain character arcs, like people who are more in this side of the field instead of that side of the field, and you're going to meet one of those characters that I think is more
well-developed antagonist characters.
Oh, yeah.
Always good.
I think he's less of a villain and more of an anti-hero.
He's more like Venom.
Venom.
That's why I said antagonist, not villain. An antagonist is somebody that's opposed to the heroes, not necessarily bad, but
I said Venom.
Villain, okay.
Yeah, but Venom went from villain to anti-hero.
Yeah.
To hero.
Oh, you're saying he? Okay, I got you. So
you know who I'm talking about.
He doesn't go straight to he's straight anti-hero, not straight villain. I got what you're saying. Yeah,
but people will perceive him as villain for what he does.
Yeah,
it's all about the outside source of what sees you for who you are.
Perception is reality.
Yes. The other problem, he was an extremist, which makes him a villain.
That'll always do.
So that's his ways. We should probably get to the episodes first.
Yeah. I was about to say, we probably should hold the discussion about this character until after I have met him and we've seen more of what this character is like. But at any rate, so we'll jump back into My Hero Academia, and we'll see you after the binge. And we're back after our binge of next 5 episodes of Season 2 of My Hero Academia. Now we're moving into the one-on-one matches for the sports festival finals, and I can see why you were looking forward to this stuff. But it opened up with a sort of a breather episode as Deku met with All Might to basically talk about. No, it was Deku and Todoroki first, as Todoroki basically noted the similarities between Deku's power and All Might's. I was like, "Are you his love child or something?" Which is not an unreasonable assumption to make. And All Might also met with Endeavor, the Flame Hero, and aka Todoroki's dad. And it's like they haven't actually spoken in like 10 years. And All Might basically just is being polite, is like, want to talk about how you trained him, because we've got to train the next generation of heroes. And Endeavor's just sort of like, yeah, no, I made Shoto to beat you.
The way he kept saying it, I created Shoto.
I made him.
I made him. I created him. He is my creation. Not like, I have a son. I built a snowman. Come on. It's
God, now you're making me imagine how he courted Shoto's mom. It's just like, do you want to make a snowman?
No! But with how they said it early on in that, I think it was in the same episode, how arranged
quirk marriages. Yeah,
he paid for the highest.
He paid the family basically to pretty much hand her over in courtship.
Yeah,
and Japan.
It's just even then they noted that it's a very sketchy practice.
How early on did they do it before they started making it kind of
before there was a lot more stigma against that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But Shoto basically talked about how he just remembers his mom crying a lot, and mentioned that she hated the left side of his body because that's the side that resembles his father more. And we finally learned how he got that Zuko scar on his face.
You ever wonder how I got these scars?
Well, we found out she poured boiling water on his face, which is not what I was expecting.
What were you expecting?
I expected that his father did it to him in training somehow, kind of like it happened to Zuko. Although in Zuko's case in Last Airbender, it wasn't that during training; it was more that he pissed off his father. His father challenged him to a duel and burned his eye for it.
Well, you also got the thing of he beat the shit out of him practically and trained him so hard when he was 5.
Yeah, the abusive training abusive upbringing, full stop, really explains a lot about why Todoroki is the way he is and why he refuses to use the flame powers. I'd be pretty pissed off if that had been my childhood. We got a brief glimpse at the side games for the people that didn't advance. Wasn't really a whole lot there.
Well, you gotta mention one other thing though:
the fan service.
Not just the fan service, the true heroes of the show that gave up their position because they didn't remember squat.
Ojiro, and who's the guy with the tail, and one of the guys from 1B.
Yeah.
They basically said, we're withdrawing from the next round because we don't remember what happened during the cavalry battle. Mm-hmm. And it turns out they were on Shinso's team, and he'd used his quirk on them. We're getting to what that quirk is, but they basically stepped down.
The fan service.
And so Tetsu and Shiozaki? Yeah, Shiozaki, the Vine Girl, were basically called up in their place. And, well, Deku had to face off against Shinso in the first round, and now we finally found out what his quirk is. This is the one that Sam said he wanted last time we recorded this. When we were like, if you could have a quirk, what quirk would you want? And you said you wanted Shinso's.
Well, it's just to keep wondering, guessing, trying to figure out what that power is. They haven't outright said it, but then knowing that he has this ability that could potentially basically puppetize people or
and
take full control.
He brainwashes people, but there's limits to how it works. You have to respond verbally to something that he has said, and then
not verbally. Because remember, Midori nodded. Brain control.
Oh, that's right. If you respond to him in any sort of acknowledging way.
Damn. I was gonna say the onomatopoeia character could respond to him, but it would be a respond in the bubble.
But if it's an onomatopoeia, it's true. Deku just nodded, and it was still enough to trigger it. But and Deku gets warned by Ojiro. It's just sort of like, hey, this is what this guy does. You can't speak to him at all, or he'll be able to control you. But Shinso knows how to push people's buttons.
He sure does.
He's not quite as much of a dick about it as Monomo is. Although Monomo is more just, he doesn't know when to shut up. Shinso knows exactly what to say to trigger a response from you, and then he's got you. And we saw a couple flashbacks with him that when his quirk first manifested, all of his classmates in middle school basically thought that meant he was destined to become a villain.
Oh, come on, he had the evil villain haircut.
And the eyes.
That's true.
Yeah, if you look at Shinso, he looks like somebody who would grow up to be a villain. But he wants to be a hero. And Deku does ask him later, and Deku does advance, by the way. I'll get into how he does that in a bit, but he asks Shinso, why do you want to be a hero? And Shinso doesn't really give him a straight answer, but says, you can't help the things your heart longs for. It's like he's always wanted to be a hero, and he's still striving to do it in spite of his quirk. But after he lost, he got a lot of praise from his classmates, and there were a lot of pro heroes in the audience being like, that would be really useful in apprehending villains and all this other stuff. It's just sort of like the path is there, you know.
I don't know if you make a pro hero, but you definitely make an amazing
good sidekick. Absolutely. But as for how Deku gets out of it, basically One for All snaps him out of it. He gets this like vision of sort of like spirits or ghosts of the past wielders of One for All, and is enough to get his heroic spirit to trigger enough that he just snaps.
He even said he didn't even.
Yeah, he's Deku's of the belief that something took hold of him and made him basically flick his fingers, breaking them in the process, but enough to clear his head.
He basically beat him by, after that not responding.
Yeah,
and was already more physical than
Yeah, he basically, by just going into full on physical thing, not acknowledging anything that Shinso was saying. Basically, Shinso couldn't make his quirk work on him anymore, and got thrown out of the ring. And we very briefly got Todoroki versus Sero, the tape guy. Everybody knew going in that it was going to be a one-sided match. And oh my God, yes, it was.
Well, he talked to his daddy first.
And that's the thing.
Yeah, on the way out,
on the way to the ring, Shoto got stopped by his dad, and basically told him, criticized him for not using the fire abilities that he inherited from him. It's like, you have a duty to give it your all, and Shoto's just like, I'm not going to use it. But that left him pissed off, so he froze half the fucking arena.
A good couple 100 feet over top of the arena.
Yeah.
With a huge iceberg.
Like ice tsunami, basically.
I wonder if Endeavor helped unthaw any of those people. Because they said members of the audience were frozen, so it's like, you only showed 2.
I imagine that Endeavor probably did because, well, I'm a hero. I suppose I should do
Damn it, boy! Fire the whole audience! Never too hot!
Damn it, boy. Then we had a bunch of like shorter matchups. We had Kaminari versus Shiozaki, the Vine Girl. he tried to basically go all out right from the get-go, and she just...
Well, he also fell in love.
He had the hots for her, yeah.
He asked her out before the match.
And then she just basically used her vines to both block the electricity, wrap him up, and then just throw him. And no, she didn't throw him out. She just immobilized him. And
he couldn't do his thumbs up motion.
Although
he did on his way out.
On his way out, he was doing it. Hey. Then we had Ida versus Hatsume, which was literally just she turned into one huge advertisement for all of her gadgets.
She's a Saturday morning, or as seen on TV, person.
But wait, there's more.
Except she makes all of hers.
Ron Popeil is probably watching her and just being like, "Oh, I can sell this." So she basically made Ida look like a fool because he put on some of her gear beforehand, and she just basically showed it all off. And then after she was done, she voluntarily left the ring because I've done what I came to do.
10 minutes later, walk out of the ring.
10 minutes later.
Could you imagine him running for that whole entire time and just being tripped the whole entire time?
I can, and I think that's exactly what happened. Then we had Naval Laser versus the Acid Girl.
Mina.
Yeah, Mina. And it was pretty one-sided because she knew the limits of what his quirk could do. And so she basically just, evaded him until he overused his quirk, and then she just knocked him out.
Well, she acided his belt so he couldn't use it anymore.
That's true. She waited for that opening and then threw some acid on his belt and uppercutted him in the jaw to knock him out.
Hey. A upset tummy is a very serious issue.
You would know.
I would.
You have the biggest tummy out of everyone here.
That's why I devour everything.
How's your liver doing?
Oh, we'll talk about that. That's
not liver, kidneys. That's right.
Oh!
All right, in the kidney.
Then we had Momo versus Tokoyami. And his quirk is pretty powerful. She only had enough time to conjure up a shield to block his attack, and he just kept up the attack, so she couldn't focus to create a weapon. And by the time she finally did have a chance, he'd already won. He'd pushed her, he'd literally just driven her back out of the ring.
I feel so bad for that character.
Who?
The one that creates things, because
Momo.
That's gotta be a blow to the system right there.
Well, yeah, and we saw afterwards that she was just sort of like, I didn't even get it. Yeah. And then we had Kirishima versus Tetsu. The Thing versus Colossus.
It's a serious game of rock, paper, scissors, of walk and walk.
Rock and steel. But basically, yeah, and the two of them literally fought to a standstill.
Knocked each other out.
Yeah, and while that was going on, we went backstage, as it were, where Ochako, was basically getting ready for her match against Bakugo. And Deku and Ida both were there to lend her some moral support. Deku was even like, "Hey, I've got notes about what he can do with his quirk, and I came up with a strategy you could use." And she was like, "Thanks, but no thanks. I got to do this on my own." And then the next episode was Bakugo versus Ochako, and literally everybody watching it was like, I don't see how she can win.
Now, question. Going into that episode, do you think she would have been able to put up that much of a fight?
No. Because
you literally thought it was just going to be, boom, she's in the ring, slaughtered.
Well, I knew from when we saw the preview for the episode, and the episode was literally called Bakugo versus Uraraka, I knew it was not going to be a simple boom done match. But prior to that point, I literally was like, I don't see literally how she can last more than 5 seconds. And so she did what she could. She stayed low to the ground so that all of his blasts were
eating up the arena.
Were blowing chunks out of the arena. She used her jacket as a decoy. She basically kept on the attack. So, there was a lot of smoke and debris flying around, and he was focused so much on her that he wasn't paying attention to what she was doing. But the fact that he just kept hammering her with his blasts started making the crowd turn against him.
Which was my favorite part, because these professional heroes
were like, dude,
do not see the
this is not cool.
Trap.
That's true.
Granted, she was doing this all amongst the smoke, and if everyone's eyes are fixated here, one piece or two piece flying up in the air, they're just like, oh yeah, the shit's just flying in the air, it's going to come back down, but not realize it hasn't.
Literally the only person in the entire arena... Were there two?
There were two. Let's see what you're going to say first.
That's right, Monomo.
Yes.
I forgot about that asshole. But basically, only Aizawa and Monomo realized what her actual strategy was. And she basically had been using her power on all of that debris. And then she basically released it to turn it into a meteor shower, hoping she could use that as a distraction to get close enough to touch Bakugo so she could use her power on him and force him out of the ring. I still don't know how she would have managed that if she had actually managed to make contact with him, because they acknowledge this. Bakugo has great control over his abilities, even when he's in the air.
I think she was more going for, he's distracted, he's going to try to dodge or use his ability this direction.
And
if she's...
I see now, because when in Zero Gravity, every action has an opposite reaction. If he used his power, it would have blasted him back out of the ring, and then she just would have been like, release.
And welcome back to Science of J.
What can I say? I love science. But yeah, when he sees the meteor shower coming down, he just unleashes a huge blast.
I noticed something, especially with what they were talking about. Everyone's powers have a limit, and he was saying it himself. He was going for the one-handed.
And
the
then
problem
he had
his right hand, he'd been using almost the entire time for most of his bigger blasts. So he had to use the sweat he had left, whatever was left from his left hand, because he was scooping with both, to put a bigger explosion just to take out what was there. And if he didn't have that much sweat,
I think he actually blasted that with the left hand, because afterwards he was clutching his left hand was the one that was twitching. Yeah, he was primarily using his
so
right
he had to
hand.
Use whatever was left from the other hand, or else he wouldn't have been able to do that big of a blast, because he didn't have his gauntlets to store up the power.
Yeah, and that's something he acknowledges in a later episode.
So it wasn't moving around as much. So he wasn't making as much sweat.
But she, he's still untouched after all of that, and she's like worn out because she was getting blasted like crazy by him, and she just overstressed her power. She finally collapses, and he was moving in for the kill, as it were. But when he sees her collapse, he actually stopped. Good on him. That he shows restraint.
He talks a big, ruthless, merciless game.
But he is still a hero underneath it all. Or still wants to be a hero. There's a bit of gold underneath all that crusty exterior.
There's a reason why, I think it was around season 3, I go, stop making me want to like him some. I want to hate him.
The movies didn't help.
But so the match is called that she's passed out. And he's all grumpy about everything. I think partly because he came close to his limit in all of that. And she, after she gets a bit of help from Recovery Girl, she's frustrated but still cheerful. And then she talks to her parents on the phone, and she's all starts crying because her dad is just sort of like, you were amazing, and is still supportive of her and still very proud of her. So she's like bawling with tears.
The fact that you want to become a hero so fast just shows what type of hero you will be.
The one thing I give this show that I don't think very many, if any other shows got me so attached to that legitimately when watching first runs of a lot of these episodes, a good heartstring pull got me emotional. And I started to feel it come back again for this episode. And I was like, I remember getting really emotional and really fixated on her resolve, the drive, the way the characters are, and the voice acting is so good that it draws you in, and you're attached to these characters. You feel for them. You want them to succeed. You want them to push forward further. They're
go even further beyond.
Exactly, and it's such a noble thing that she wants to do. She wants to help her parents out, help their business. Just, I want the money.
So I can
help. Not really like want the money. I want to help my parents. I want them to be able to have their vacation. I want them to be able to not have to worry and work as hard.
And the fact that her parents are still 100% supportive of her and all of that stuff is just, it's a great little thing, especially when you look at people like like Todoroki and the relationship he has with his parents.
I think you've just, no pun intended, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of that problem.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. The next episode, of course, is after this was Todoroki versus Deku. But before we get to that,
I have a question for you before you get to that. Are you enjoying the one more episode train? Because we left it on. We were supposed to end on that, and it's like,
I should basically say we do normally do this. Try to do this as like 4 episode pieces, but when the episode ended and it was basically the next episode is going to be Deku versus Shoto, I was like, we're watching one more episode.
So you're enjoying this train?
I am enjoying this train.
Well, it also works out with the next 3 sets.
Yeah, it definitely.
Hopefully, it'll work out that way at the end of the episode.
Yeah, it's looking like there's 15 more episodes left in this season, so that'll be three more binge casts worth. But before we moved on to the second round, we finally did get someone to advance from Kirishima versus Tetsu. They had an arm wrestling match.
Though I do want to know, how does incredibly strong bodies equal super strength? Because they were able to grip the concrete ground they made and crack
Their ability.
it.
Comic book logic.
Their ability to dig into the concrete.
Yeah, well, they don't have super strength. They only have super hardened.
You don't know what they're benching.
That's true.
I
mean, to look at Deku, he doesn't look like he should be able to.
But his power is super strength. Quick, in the comments, someone tell me you have a bench press to be able to put your hand in the concrete.
At any rate, Kirishima ends up winning, and there's mutual respect shown between the two as he helps Tetsu back up, and you called it like the Predator, Dylan, you son of a bitch moment. Yeah, and we got further hints that Shigaraki is watching everything,
and he was being told
by his mentor, just like, keep an eye on these two, and his response is just like, I don't need to worry about these children. But he was scratching his neck he was scratching his neck as he said it, because he was just like, damn it. But then Todoroki versus Deku. Holy shit. I can see why you wanted to watch that episode and didn't want to just end it with 4. Holy shit. It was Deku basically slowly breaking himself just to stand a chance against Shoto.
Not even just to stand a chance, to get through to him as well.
Yeah.
He broke himself literally to get him to use his full potential.
To help him get past that mental hurdle, as it were.
Though, at the end of that fight, when the teachers are all kicking up, I want to know what the sexy teacher's effects did at all. Because you see the stone guy, brick walls all over the place. She's like, we gotta stop him. Rips off a piece of clothing, magic dust.
I think pheromones is my guess.
But it did nothing to the effect because it's just
You don't know that.
explosion.
You don't know if she lessened their attacks.
That's possible. God, that's
basically to force them to.
if that's
Yeah.
lessened. Oh,
But
Because they were going full force.
Yeah, and
he was using both abilities at the same time, so he could do a bigger ice blast.
Well, concussive blast. That's what Aizawa pointed out afterwards. That because he like superheated it. No, the air had been super cooled by all the ice that he'd been throwing around, and then he just basically superheated it, so it made this huge explosion. But regardless, Deku called him out in mid-match. It's just sort of like you're only going with half your power against me, and if
I'm not going to use my dad's ability,
yeah,
it's like it's not your dad's, it's yours.
And then he basically said, "You don't deserve to be number one if you won't give it your all." And I think that's what finally got him to wake the fuck up.
He was using ice so much that he was freezing himself from getting slower. His ability was moving slower.
And it wasn't the reason he was frosting up was because he wasn't using his flame powers to cool himself to basically warm himself back up, to melt that frost over his body.
Well, you notice they showed a couple throwback to earlier on, where he would completely encase that side of his body in ice.
It's like a way to sort of prevent himself from
even attempting it.
Yeah, that was from the training exercise. Yeah.
Also, I think he didn't want people to realize he's Endeavor's son.
Even though now everybody knows that he's Endeavor's son.
And then you got to see the flashback in the middle of that episode of how he got his. You want to know how I got this scar? But did you notice that there was a couple other of his siblings out in the courtyard when he was being dragged to train, and his dad saying, "Well, that's no place for
they
you.
live in a different world than the one you will." Than the one I'm training you for.
My brain keeps thinking about something. It's comparing Dragon Ball to My Hero. You have the second hero, which is supposed to be a hero, practically beating his son.
Yeah, not in the public eye.
But the Prince of Saiyans, the first villain of Dragon Ball Z, smacks his kid too hard, and he's taking him to get ice cream.
Vegeta's a better dad than Endeavor.
Yes!
Yeah. But here's the thing. We're going back to he paid off Todoroki's mom's family for her hand in marriage. How did he have so many kids if there was nothing between them?
Well, it's like, I think it was
Don't you do it.
I don't think that's necessarily what. I don't think that's what it is. I think it was literally just like, these kids don't have the powers that I want them to have.
That's exactly what it was.
I don't know that there was necessarily any feelings between them. I think he was probably forcing the issue.
What are you pointing at me? I'm not saying that name right now.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking
about. I know exactly what you're talking about. I know what you're hinting to. It's the worst part about it.
Okay, are we hinting at characters in later seasons here?
Possibly.
Okay. Well, not even characters, more like story arc pieces.
Fair enough.
But I'm talking about like his siblings. Almost all of them had residual traits primarily of his mom. Except for one had a little bit of red in there.
Yeah, I'm going to say there was a redhead in there.
Not a full redhead. Only had like a couple streaks, and then the eldest son, pure white. And I think the middle child had the couple streaks.
That's true.
And then Todoroki is what he wanted.
Half ice, half fire.
Because he knows only heat can get him so far, but with the cooling, being able to do the combustion and being able to protect himself at the same time.
Basically being able to regulate himself. Because I do get the impression that Endeavor's basically like his powers are always active in some way. Which is one of those things that kind of sucks. Granted,
I think he keeps it active just for appearance.
Because he can't grow a full facial hair beard without fire.
He tried it once and scorched it off. I was like, well, this is my beard now.
Although we were joking around that after the big explosion, when the match ended, that we kind of wanted to see the shockwave had blown out Endeavor's beard. It would have
My
been
facial hair! It took me years to grow that!
but at any rate, Deku ended up losing because the shockwave from that explosion finally did knock him out of the ring.
He hit the freaking wall.
With enough force to see a dent in it.
And Deku's now going to go get himself wrapped up in a whole bunch of bandages again because bandages fix everything.
And a whole bunch of boo-boo kisses.
Oh yeah, boo-boo kisses from Recovery Girl. Although there's a limit to what she can do. That's going to be a multi-step recovery process.
And it's up to the person's stamina as well.
Mm.
So if he's already spent, he's going to be laid out for a while.
Yeah. Well, considering he was breaking his fingers multiple times just to counteract Shoto's power. Jeez.
And I think he blew out his whole left arm too.
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Punch.
It was like up to his bicep.
I think because most of the fingers there too. All these fingers multiple times.
No, because he only did the one punch with that one arm.
Yeah, he only punched once with.
He flicked with them too. He did a couple flicks.
Did he?
Thought so.
Because I remember
he kept counting down how many flicks he had left.
I thought he stopped at 5. And
then after that, it was just like he broken all of his fingers, he broken all the fingers on one hand, apart from his thumb, I think. But then he broke his entire left arm, and then he did like a cheek flick with his thumb, just like literally went with his thumb just to do a shockwave again, which I was like, that's a nice touch, but. Definitely still enjoying this series. Looking forward to when we can do the next binge, depending on when our schedules will all match up.
What are you talking about? We're doing one tomorrow, more than likely.
Maybe. We'll see.
Because Chris is going to be out of commission.
This is true. So we can always get more episodes in the can. I'm always for that. I can see Sam is very much eager for that.
Any prediction on who the finals is going to be?
I'm guessing Bakugo maybe makes it to the finals.
Come on, he's fighting Kirishima. How is he gonna win?
I mean, Kirishima is.
What do you mean? We don't use explosives to break rocks, do we?
Yeah,
and is that the next fight?
I don't remember.
No, I think you got your hero.
Ida's against the
Vine Check.
Yes.
Ida's against Shiozaki, yeah.
Well, that episode's more backstory than anything, I think.
For Ida, yeah.
Yeah, the next match is Ida versus.
That's some Ida backstory. So how are you feeling that how they're doing the little bits of backstory, somewhat during the matches and a little bit before sometimes?
I like it. It's typical shonen anime,
but it fills it out well. It doesn't.
It fills it out well, right? Because that's always how it's been in these sorts of tournament arcs. You tend to get flashbacks and to fill in the backstory on various characters to give some insight to their motivation, kind of thing. But definitely still enjoying it. If any of you listeners have not been following My Hero Academia, I do recommend you do so.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. I know Sam has been singing its praises for a long while. Heck, you were singing its praises even before it blew up.
Yeah, I liked My Hero Academia before it was cool.
He's the My Hero hipster.
I mean, I would go to places talking about My Hero Academia. When Nami and I went to a convention where the voice actor is it Chris Sabat?
Yes.
Chris Sabat was there. We were going to go get a
Vegeta.
Yeah,
for All Might. Yeah, that's right.
We were going to get a Vegeta autograph. Nami was in line behind a couple girls looking at the pictures. They're like, oh my god, who's that?
And they pointed at a picture of All Might.
And she looked over their shoulder. She's like, holy shit, he's the voice of All Might. And she's like, these bitches don't know who All Might is. And she realized that the voice he uses for All Might is slightly deeper tone than his normal speaking voice.
And Yeah, and speaking of the voice, there was a moment in this particular binge when All Might meets with Deku to give him some words of encouragement. He's in his withered form, as I like to think of it, and he's speaking in a more normal tone. But then towards the end of it, he shifts into full on All Might mode, and he brings the All Might voice out, and it's just like it was literally just in the voice.
You
voice
expect
work.
that kind of perfection out of
that is one of those little things that I love. That he knew enough to make that adjustment to the voice in that moment. Granted, I'm sure he probably had like the video of what he was recording the voice for in front of him, so that he could be like, "Oh, he shifts, so I gotta shift my voice up."
Or even in the script, where it's like, okay, it transforms. Maybe I want. Let me put a little spin on this.
I don't know how a lot of voice acting stuff goes, even though I personally would love to get into it. Maybe that'll be a thing I put up on YouTube at some point. I may or may not have some plans for that sort of thing, but regardless.
Oh God, when he says he has plans,
this is something for me, not for necessarily for the Bored to Death channel.
Run, hide.
When he says he has plans, he has the plans.
But at any rate, I definitely think I liked, of the 5 that we watched, Deku versus Shoto.
Oh yeah,
100% my favorite. My favorite
building
episode.
Up to it though.
Oh yeah, because there were several episodes that led up to this, and it was well worth it. And you, Zeke?
I don't have a favorite episode of this 5. They're all good.
Come on, you gotta pick one.
Fine, if I have to pick one, I would go with. I actually like the Bakugo
Uraraka.
Yeah, because that was more feelings and emotions than look at the awesome fight.
I'll agree. That one is a very close second. But Deku versus Shoto edges it out just a little bit.
Fight wise, Midoriya and Todoroki.
Emotions
wise,
get you in the feels.
Ochako and Bakugo. Because going into it, you know in your heart she is gonna lose. But you want her to win.
But part of you is like, oh, maybe she's gonna pull it off. Maybe she's gonna
seeing it for the very first time, seeing all the rocks up there, seeing
the
look on his
seeing
face.
The meteor shower, I was like, oh.
And she's like,
oh.
And now I have you. And he's like, the fuck?
Release.
Boom. I was like, oh, she's got this shit. She's got this. And he just goes, boom. And I'm like, oh, then my heart sank.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an emotional freaking roller coaster, that episode.
So, but I think that about wraps it up for this edition of the Bingecasts. Still a great series, still recommended. But for Sam and Zeke, I'm Jay, and we'll see you next time.